Hi, welcome back to the Red Effect Podcast. Today I've got Senior Agronomist John Person and Ryan Mullenhoff, Mr. REDSTAR himself. Guys, thanks for stopping by to have a little chat today. Topic today, planting checklist for 2026. Okay, we're close. Okay, we're fertilizing today. We're spraying today. Spring 26 has started. I want to talk about, the key things that farmers need to keep top of the mind. My whole thing for this year has been little things become big things. If we don't take care of the little things, they become big things. All right. So let's start out. Seed. 2026 for seed companies has been a bit of a challenge. Okay. We've got some quality issues from all the major companies that grow it. Cold germ, warm germ, just germ in general. There's been hybrids that have been completely, scaled back, backed off. I'm one of them, had to change it because of it. As you go to starting planting on April 10th, what are the key things from a seed perspective we need to keep top of mind?
Whether you buy your seed from us or whoever, know what you're planting. Know your cold saturated testing. Place your hybrids based on that. You can plant early. Just make sure that you have the right variety, the right germ-tested corn planted then. We've tested this for 4 years now. It is real. It's up to 25 bushel on the exact same hybrid. So that's number one.
Yeah, 100%. High cold germination corn outperformed average cold germ corn by an average of 8 bushel in 2025. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that all comes down to even emergence and early vigor being correct so the corn matures at the same time.
That's especially on early planted. As we get later, if we're planting in May when everything's warm, it's probably a little less critical. But
yeah, and I think our data has showed that the last 4 years. Again, when we talk about cold germ, we're talking about cold, when the soil is cold, okay? And if we have a hybrid that has a low cold germ score, that doesn't mean that lot is bad. You can never plant it. We just want you to plant it later when the soil's warmer. And when we do that, I think the data is pretty good. It's right there with everything else.
Correct. And I think when you're doing the cold sat, I know from testing, it's 5 days consistently at 45 degrees. That's how it gets tested. So when they talk about a great cold sat, that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And it's at 100% soil moisture saturation too. So you can trust those scores.
Yep.
They've definitely been through it. John, let's talk about, now that we know you know what your cold germ is, it's really good, and you know you're going to plant it. Let's talk about corn, and then we'll talk about soybeans as well. But let's talk about, depth and planting date.
Okay, well, the research has all shown that soybeans planted first are yielding better. And that's just basically because of the sunshine, the energy it starts to take early. And I think some of the benefit we get from that is we don't get in such a hurry with our corn, and we have some corn that's planted a little bit later. But as far as depth, it kind of comes back to cold germ and the corn coming up. If you can plant it 2.5 inches deep, both corn and beans, the temperature at that depth and the moisture at that depth is more consistent. It won't have the highs and lows. The cold water inhibition won't be so bad. It'll just be a lot more consistent in your emergence.
Yeah, it's actually hard to believe, but early season, the deeper you plant it, the warmer it actually is down there, and you're not affected by those, systems that move through our area that we get down to, 19 or 20 degrees at night and then warm up to 45 during the day, which, that kind of plays logically to you a little bit because you think the deeper you go, the colder it is, but that's not necessarily true.
I remember way back 20-some years ago, first selling seed, they brought a seed technologist in. He was one of 300 in the entire world. And I remember this to this day. He goes, you never plant under 2 inches. I don't care if it's hot, cold, wet, dry, never. So they have to remember that's where your brace roots, that's where standability comes from. It's really, really important. What do they say, 90% of your yields when you leave with the planter?
That's right. And one thing about planting a decent depth is back to your roots. There is a shallow planted corn syndrome is what it's called sometimes. And you basically have no roots underneath, and it can cut your yield 50, 60 bushels. I've seen it be, tremendous. And sometimes what we get is if we plant too fast or have a lot of trash that we're not moving properly, we get seeds that are different depths. So consistent depth is extremely important.
Yeah, but if you're not first, you're last.
So Ryan, you're pretty good with planters. So guys are pulling the planters out of the shed. They're sitting in the yard. I've seen them the last 10 days. What are the things in the planter that our growers should be looking at to make sure that we can get a consistent planting depth?
Yeah, I don't care what color planter it is. Make sure that your true V's are in the optimal setting or optimal size. Just because they're passing today, remember all year. If you're planting 2,000 acres, are they going to be worn out? Or are you going to have to replace them at the end of the year? Make sure your gauge wheels are set. And what is great to do is put a 2x4 underneath there and actually set each row so that you know that 2.5 inches is 2.5 inches. Or 1.5 inches, So that's critical. And let's not forget about seed bed. So we have great planters, but if that row unit's going up and down, bouncing all over, we have all the technology to tell us what our ride is. That's important. We want that picket fence. We want all of our seeds to come up at the same time.
When we're paying, $125, $135 an acre, for the seed corn, and it's another $65, $70 an acre for the soybeans. When they say the planter's the most important piece of equipment on the farm, I believe it. The two things you guys just talked about is so critical. And Ryan, I think you made a good point. It's not just before we start planting, but if I'm planting 1,000 acres or 2,000 acres or 5,000 acres, we need to check that. Every couple of days, at least, maybe every day, just to make sure you can lose more yield by not keeping track of that little thing than what you'll ever guess.
And you talked briefly about setting each row. I've looked at after a lot of corn planters, Doug, and every once in a while you'll find a row or the outside wings are, half-inch shallower, and you could have planted 2,000 acres with half the farm, 1.5 inches deep versus 2.5 deep. And
I've seen brand new planters that were not the same on row to row.
So dig every row, at least to start. Dig every row and as far as being the first done, I'd rather be the last done with the highest yield.
You should see my dad's fingers when he's done. There's 0 nails left.
Well, that's good. That means he's watching digging things, he's keeping track, and he's digging. John, you talked about soybeans, planting soybeans first before corn. Why? Why do we want to plant beans early, and what have we seen?
Well, we see the yields go up, and especially if they're planted a decent depth, planted slow, use a single cell plate, and the beans, when they start to get their emergence, the energy in that sun at that time really gives the beans a kick. We can get more nodes. We can just see some yield advantages out of that. And really you should be treating those seeds so that we don't get diseases in them. Corn, a lot of times we'll get diseases early, and that's a bad thing.
I think what most people tend to forget is what it takes 2.5 days to put a node on a plant, something like that. And the longer it's in the soil, the more potential that you have to get the highest yield. So we went to Commodity Classic, and Fred Bila was there, went and watched him. And our red acre plots, I was going through there, and he did almost exact same replicas. Planted early was the same 2-point-some bushel, 3.25 bushel yield increase. It matched. Planting population, 90 to 110,000, optimal, matched. Seed treatment, that was interesting. It didn't matter if it was early or late planted. It was 2.8 bushel every single time. That was in Illinois.
That's exactly what ours is.
Yeah.
That's our data in 25 showed exactly 2.8 bushels on seed treatment. Didn't matter if it was April 10th when you started or May 1st.
Yeah, I'd much rather see you plant a lower population and spend the money on seed treatment, fertility, something there. I think we showed, 40, was something like $60 difference in revenue,
Right.
between lowering that but still having seed treatment in there. So
and to kind of give everybody a little bit of background, we compared 140,000 to 110,000 treated, 110,000 naked, and then down to 90. And then what we didn't publish, because we didn't want people throwing stones, we planted 50, 60, and 80,000 and got yields on those too. And the reason we do those things is because if we get a hail event or something happens and we lose population, we want to be able to give our customers some data saying, you know what, maybe you shouldn't tear up that 75,000 population. Maybe you should leave it. That's really why we do those things. But John, in terms of depth on soybeans, what's your recommendation from a depth standpoint on planting depth?
Absolutely nothing less than 2. I like 2.5. I have a few growers I work with that are at 3, and we do get even emergence and some very good yielding beans. And we don't always get the highest population because some of them don't make it. But some of the best beans I've seen were at 80,000.
I would agree. So basically, Ryan, if I'm hearing John right, and he's saying plant the corn 2.5 inches, the beans at 2.5 inches. What have you been doing on the planter the last couple of years on beans?
2 1/4.
2 1/4?
2 1/4, 2.5.
And are you using corn plates or soybean plates?
Corn plates. And on the newer planters, you can do that. We have obviously a red planter, go figure. And those are 27 cell discs and Dad plants on the farm and he loves it because he could plant all the beans and then go to corn, or he can plant beans, go to corn, go back to beans, and it just gives you that flexibility too. But when we talk about picket fences, we want that in soybeans too. Look at the architecture of that plant. It completely changes when you lower that population on soybeans.
Absolutely. When you listen to the high yield guys, right, from out east and down south, and they'll tell you that soybean spacing is maybe as important or more important than corn spacing.
I would agree with that. As we dig roots in soybeans, if we have say a 6-inch spacing, it's amazing the difference in the roots. And the size of the stalk is tremendous. So let's say we have a disease or an insect that gets inside that beanstalk. It's going to stand better. We can't afford to lose plants just to falling over because they've.
Well, just think of like white mold and just being able to get more air through that canopy, and since we've done it, we just haven't seen near the pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in terms of soybeans, that seed treatment is really a must. 2.8 bushels an acre easily pays for the seed treatment. Now, I want to move in here to the final segment in terms of new things. Okay, let's talk about new things that are out there for the planter, for corn, for soybeans that can actually, as we plant earlier, that can actually help our growers make sure we're getting the best placement and also some things in there that we can help overcome the environment at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's another seed box treatment, but this is unique. It is, I don't know of any other product quite like this one. It has been tested in every single row unit, also on precision planting stands. It's been tested in John Deere's too. But what most of them have out there is a graphite talc, and then they have micronutrients. That's the industry standard, but we go a whole nother step farther. We have carbon sources. We have our amino acids, so same as Novastar. We have the same biology that's in our Biofine Nex. So when you look at this, we're not costing any more than any of the other guys out there, but they are getting a premium product.
Absolutely. So ProSync is what we're talking about. And John, you and I have done a lot of talking about this product over the last 4 years. We have really at REDSTAR drug our feet on this because of what you just said, Ryan. There's so many people out there, you need this. You need talc and graphite, and then you need this, or you need this, and then it was this. I'm really glad we sat back. We watched the market over the last 3 to 4 years develop, and we're able, John, to really get everything that you've been talking about that last 2 or 3 years. We finally found a company that would give it to us in one bag, in one box treatment that fits both corn and soybeans.
From a nutrient standpoint of what the seed needs to germinate and germinate evenly, it's tremendous. I mean, there's some calcium in it, and people don't think, well, we don't need calcium, but because our soils are full of it. But that seed needs it to be from the beginning, and we overlook that sometimes. One of the things we don't think about is you mentioned earlier that the seed companies have had some trouble. Well, along with when they do have trouble, there's a reason, and if we can help that out, get that nutrient into that seed right away, it's going to be amazing.
John, and that calcium was really one of your sticking points the last couple of years. Okay, we had a lot of people bring us treatments they didn't have calcium in it, and they didn't have the things in it like sugar and humic and fulvic, those things that help make calcium. But all the calcium we have in our soils, it's not plant available. The plant has to work so hard to get it. So even just having a 1% calcium, but it's in the seed, it's on the seed, is really so critical. Ryan, let's talk about rates of ProSync. We've got corn, we got soybeans. Let's talk corn first. What's the rate of ProSync per unit of corn?
It's super easy. So 2 bags per 1 Pro box of corn, 1 bag per 1 box of soybeans. And there is scoopers in there for the individual box planters like what I have, and 1 scoop per unit of seed.
Absolutely. And if you've got some small fields like I do, it's pretty simple. It's 3 ounces for corn per unit, and on beans, it's 1.5 ounces. So I kind of like that because all I have to do is divide by 2 when I count, John. I get 3 and 1.5 on this one.
That works. And from what I understand, this will flow. The graphite talc will not cause problems. Some of the other products, if you have a single hopper, the air systems, they can create problems. But
Yeah.
from what we've done here, there shouldn't be.
Nope.
Yeah. And, let's talk about sugar. Obviously, I like sweets, right? I'm a Snicker guy. I think one of the key components in here is, we got 2.5 ounces of fulvic acid, 2.5 ounces, 2.5% fulvic, 2.5% humic, but that 2.5% sugar. What's one of the reasons why we're using sugar, John, in that furrow or around that seed early season when we're planting early?
Well, sugar is carbon. Carbon is plant-based sunshine. Sunshine is energy. That's a simple way of giving energy to the biology to get the nutrients into the seed. That's a very simple way to put it.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. It's been proven for years that in a garden, you put on some molasses and the corn will taste a little sweeter and you'll actually get a good response. And this is just a great way to get it on our crops.
Absolutely. As that seed germinates, as that root system develops, that plant produces sugar, which actually feeds the microbes. All we're doing is we're basically helping that process along, which is really good. Last segment I want to move to is starter fertilizers. Okay. Ryan, starters are obviously have been a big part of your career, of your life. Let's talk about Maxim Star Plus and what sets Maxim Star Plus really apart from the rest of the starters in the industry.
So a lot of the industry gets really caught up on NP and K. That's your starter fertilizer. And I've seen it time and time again. Oh, starter fertilizer doesn't work, whatever. Well, it's not really the NP and K that I think is the most important. It's the other things that we're doing. Micronutrients, carbon sources, sugars. That's what really completes that. And we've done it in our Red Acre trials for 5 years now on over 100 parts per million phosphate. And we still get over 6.5 bushel return average. And
that's because we have the right micronutrients. Not just a micronutrient package, but the right ones.
Absolutely. And John, one of the other things that sets MicroStar Plus really apart from everything else is the acetate. And, acetate really basically comes out of the soil lab idea, right? We got the idea from the soil lab, right? Because when you send a soil test in and you want to find out what's in your soil, they run an acetate extraction. It's called Bray 1, and they give it to you so you know what you got. When you've got acetate in that starter, can you kind of just give everybody kind of a word picture of kind of what it's doing in furrow and the reason why we're using it?
Well, in the soil sample, that's what they use to extract it, and that's P1 would be in water extractable, so it's available. So it would only make sense to add more to that small band to create, just to make it more available, to make the water that's there work, and it'll take those nutrients in quicker. It does work. It actually is an acid that pulls the nutrients out of the soil and makes some water available.
Absolutely, because phosphorus is negatively charged. If you look at a soil test, look at your base saturations, 85, 90, 95% of our soil is calcium and magnesium. And I've always related it this way to kind of give a visual. I'm a big guy. I'm calcium, right? Ryan, you're phosphorus. I'm going to reach out with one arm and grab onto you, and I'm going to hang on to you. And really what the acetate is doing as a word picture is it's basically taking that calcium phosphate that's attached to the soil that's not plant available, and we're basically pulling that off into soil solution, like you just said, John, and it just makes it easier for that plant to pull it up.
Yeah. And we need those nutrients in that plant. If you ever look at do a dig with in-furrow fertilizer and one without, you're going to see the seeds biodegrade a lot quicker in the non-in-furrow. So it just allows the plant to have nutrients longer where there's an in-furrow and the acetates and things. So the plant can be healthier longer at a young age.
And as Fred Below says, and again, I'd encourage, the folks listening to this, go look at Fred Below's data and his information. Placing fertilizer in a band by the row to where the roots can get it is so important. And along those lines, Ryan, the last couple of years with our RX360 program and the True Biotest, we've also uncovered some other things in our soil. We've got some fungus issues and some nematode type issues. Probably one of the biggest things the last 2 years that we've seen is in-furrow applications of fungicide. Can you just share with everybody kind of what we have seen the last 2 years in 24 and 25 and the kind of returns on investment we're getting on in-furrow fungicide on corn?
Yeah, sure. So we've tested this for over 2 years now. We've done, I believe, like 12 to 13 different products, and average over 2 years of data has been 18.5 bushel. Like, that's real.
Yeah, that it is real, John. And again, John, I've been here a little over 4 years, going on 4.5. And when I arrived on campus at REDSTAR University, John was like, "Hey, we need to start doing in-furrow fungicides." And John, I'm a slow learner. It took us 2 years, but you're right. 24 we saw 18.5 bushel, and last year it was over 21 bushels.
And the wet years, they just exaggerate the disease issue. And one thing that is kind of overlooked is the fact that, stock rot, most of the fusariums and those things, crown rot, all starts when the corn's 3-4 inches tall. Cannot fix it after that.
Yeah.
So we try to address it early.
100%. And I'm going to, try to talk to Taylor when she puts this out to see if she maybe can't put a picture in that you and I took this summer, showing, the crown jewel, right? The crown root, where it's protected and where it's not, and the impact that actually had on the yield of that plant.
And so many people don't remember what you did at planting. Remember at harvest, why ain't your corn plant standing? Well, did you get gibberella? Did you get stock rot, fusarium in there? And that caused it to knock over. So.
Absolutely. And, we've been guessing for years. John, back in 23, I had a cornfield that just didn't yield. And I'd put 3 tons of turkey manure on it, and I'm sitting here looking the why. Well, I got to looking at the manure analysis, and I'm like, well, I had 50 tons of salt. It had to be the salt. Well, until Ryan, we did the RX360 and that True Biotest, and then I uncovered that I was full of fusarium and gibberella root rot and all these things. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, the turkey manure didn't hurt me here, but it hurt me here. And it's because of that test that we're able, John, to identify that I had the root rot, and we did that trial on there, and it was 12 bushels.
It's not always nutrients.
It's not always nutrients. But just to kind of close it up, just give me a real 1 minute overview, Ryan, of RX 360, the importance of that true bio test, and why all of our customers, if they've got a problem field, this spring would be a great time to have one of those tests done.
Sure. On RX 360. So yeah, we do a soil test. We do it on a 10 by 10 meter accuracy. So same as what you're getting for your grid samples, just at a higher intensity. And then we're also doing DNA sampling at a 0.9 acres per sample. So we're getting a great look at your field of what other diseases are out there. And I think we're testing something like 240 different diseases that they're testing now. So it's there's a ton of things. There's a ton of things that I have no idea what it means yet, but there's a ton of things that we do know and what we can protect ourselves against.
And John, that test really just confirmed what you've been seeing in the field the last 5 to 6 years, and why you were talking about back in 22 and 23 and why we needed an in-furrow fungicide.
Yeah, that's right. But I think one thing that we all need to just summarize here is, if we can plant at the right depth, if we don't have the fungicide, the disease is you can still have rootless corn. If we even put the fungicide on, if it's not the right depth, we have to have the right depth. We have to control the diseases, and we have to put the right in-furrow in, seed treatment. It all comes together as a package. We can't just pick one of these things and do them.
Oh, I agree. And that's why we did this today, right? The planter checklist. It's those little things that if you do or don't do at planting are really going to set the success in October and November when we're harvesting that grain. Guys, any closing thoughts?
Have a safe, happy planting.
Yes, be safe.
It's like 85 out today, so people are going nuts.
85 today. It'll be 24 tomorrow night. Again, thanks for joining us here at the Red Effect Podcast. Our goal at REDSTAR is to help our red make you green on your farm every year.